Good morning and welcome to Mayor's Weekly. This morning we want to spend some time with you talking about the authorities that are granted to a mayor. I'm not talking about specifically about myself, but to the office of mayor. And joining me is Kathy Shamlis. Y'all all know Kathy, and among her many certifications, she's a master municipal clerk. And Kathy is asked often in our council meetings and work sessions, things come up, questions come up. Does the action belong to the mayor or does it belong to the council? And she's been through this so many times, she has it committed to memory, and you get an immediate answer, and that's so very helpful. And we've done this before on the Mayor's Weekly, but some things that I've encountered in the last couple of weeks, I said it might not hurt to have a little refresher on that. And Kathy, maybe to start, the authority that's granted to a mayor, the political subdivision, that being the municipality, the size of that municipality population-wise, has some bearing on how business is conducted and the authority that's granted to a mayor. And I think that might be important because we have some municipalities in our county that their population is less than the population in Jasper, and you read about those folks conducting their business and it looks a little different from what we do in Jasper. You mind talking about that just a little bit?
No, sir. Once a city's population exceeds 12,000, then the mayor no longer sits with the council. So he doesn't have a vote with the council. And that's the way we're organized. You are not sitting with the council. Now, when I was first hired here in 1985, our mayor at that point did sit with the council, but once the city of Jasper exceeded that 12,000 population, and it did sometime in the 80s, then he no longer was able to sit and have a vote just like any other council member would have.
Now, Kathy, the way we're structured today, we've crossed the population threshold of 12,000. And you go to much larger cities in the state, they're structured just like Jasper. Is that right? Or Jasper structured just like them?
Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, all those, they're not going to have their mayor sitting and voting with the council.
Now, the source of this authority is not set out by anybody in Jasper or whatever. It's set out by the state legislature and is contained in the Code of Alabama. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And wouldn't want you to think that we've made up our own rules of what we're going to do or whatever. And if you look at how the city of Jasper operates, or Huntsville or Birmingham or whatever, really kind of mirrors what goes on in Montgomery, doesn't it? You look at the governor, of course we have the House and the Senate that have to approve things, but there's a lot of similarities.
Yes, sir.
Now, Kathy, and then of course if you were reading about a smaller municipality, as you say, you'd read the mayor voted for or the mayor voted against, and you won't read about that in Jasper or Huntsville because the mayor does not sit with the council, does not vote on issues. Now, let's talk about money, and that's something that I like to talk about.
Me too.
And let's talk about taxpayers' money. The mayor cannot appropriate 1 penny of taxpayer money, can he?
No, sir.
So, if I thought we needed this or we needed that, and I set out to do that, I'd get nowhere with it because I do not have the authority to do that. Now, the only body that can spend 1 penny of taxpayer money is the council. Now, we had a situation here where we talked about our pickleball courts and the paring down and whatever. If the council, and we'll be looking at that, if the council makes an appropriation of money for a project, the mayor can't step in and pare that down, can he?
No, sir.
He or she
No, sir.
just don't have that authority. And oftentimes I read and I hear things that the mayor did this or the mayor did that. Well, I can tell you, if it involves money, then you can look to the council, and our council does a very good job. But it's their authority. The collective authority is it's not not one council member do this, but it's the collective authority that allows them to do that.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
That is correct.
Now let's move on just a little bit about we've been working on our organizational chart, and we've got that in place. But Kathy, talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about we have over 200 employees and who those folks work for and what authorities a mayor has with regard to employees, if you don't mind.
Well, in Alabama code, the mayor is the chief executive officer of the city. So as such, it gives him the general supervision and control over all officers and employees of the city. So every employee here works for the mayor, and as you mentioned your organizational chart, of which you have the right to structure this city any way you choose, you have department heads, such as the police chief, the fire chief, and every one of street department, park and rec. And every one of those department heads have employees that fall under their supervision. But of course, Alabama code makes the mayor the supervisor over all employees.
Now, Kathy, that the mayor is the only position that has the authority to hire, the only authority to fire. Is that right?
That is
now,
correct.
What we know when we run into this from time to time, just a few weeks ago, the Civil Service Board has certain authorities that the municipality has to comply with.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right? Now, talk a little bit, if you don't mind, Kathy, about somebody wants to get a job at the city, what they have to do and what role the Civil Service Board plays in that before it ends up on the mayor's desk to either accept or reject.
Well, because we have a civil service board, and they are charged with the responsibility of creating registers for a mayor to hire from. So
Only register I can hire
that
from.
only register a mayor can hire from. So each position here in the city, you would have to take a test. You'd have to make an application, meet the qualifications, which is laid out by the Civil Service Board, and take a test, pass that. They do an interview, written exam and an interview, and then they will create a register with the top three, and that will be.
Let me ask you, and we have no input into that.
No,
that's done with the board.
No input. We have no input really when they're going to give that test. Obviously, if we say we have an opening, they're going to work towards getting a register created for us. But they provide you with the three names of which you've had no input in, or department manager, and then you and the department manager, if you so choose, can interview those three people and decide from those three who you would like to select to have that job.
Right. Now, Kathy, something that we've encountered and we encounter from time to time, we have this organizational chart, and you look out here, and it's got tentacles or legs or whatever you want to call it, and and maybe a person thinks that they need to be elevated from where they're at, but there's no position to go to. Now, the mayor can't change that, can he?
No, sir. You know, I guess if you decided that you really needed a position and we didn't, and it wasn't already provided, you can go to the council.
Got to go to the council.
Got to go to the council and talk with them, see if they will support the funding of that position.
Because absent the funding, it's a moot point.
That's exactly right.
And so what I hope you would pick up from what we just talked about, the mayor can't reach out and hire his buddies or his kin folks or whatever without those folks having gone through the process.
That's correct.
And you can't drive around that. They've got to go through the Civil Service Board, and they've got to stand for the test, and they got to make the top three.
That's correct.
And then if you wanted to make a special accommodation to somebody, you can't go out and just poof, create another job classification or whatever. You got to go back to the council, and that sometimes is a little aggravating. But what I want to say, and I think you agree with me, Kathy, it's good. We talk about a balance of powers to have those kind of checkpoints. If you didn't have that, I suspect you'd have a lot of runaway wrongdoing. And
well, the potential's out there for that, and that's, I guess, why state of Alabama has the laws set to try to regulate, balance that power.
Yeah. Now, we'll wrap up with this, Kathy, because it's about to be budget time. And if you look like this in Washington, it looks like this in Montgomery, we're working now to prepare a budget for fiscal year 2024. And we'll prepare that budget, but that budget is meaningless until adopted by the council.
And that's correct.
And that drives our spending. Now, Kathy, we've seen this out here in our community too. We'll approve a budget before September 30, and that's okay. Now, if there's a deviation from that budget, we'll make it real simple. Let's just say for Department A, you budgeted $10,000 for the year, and that department head comes in and says, I've run into something extraordinary here. I'm going to need an extra $5,000. That don't just happen, does it?
No, sir. That's why we do our budget amendments.
And we do those as they come in every month, not well, every 2 weeks.
Just about every 2 weeks. It's rare for us not to have a budget amendment. Most of the time it's providing for a piece of equipment that just got to have it, or a project, a big project. But we will do smaller line item adjustments from time to time as well, and that just keeps everything where we can measure where we're at.
Well, and by doing that and doing it timely, we know where we're at all times. There's never a, if you will, flying blind out there. We the budget amendments not only happen on the expense side, they can happen on the revenue side. If you had something extraordinary that's going to be a big shot in the arm, or if there's going to be a taking away of revenue. Is that right?
Either direction, and you know, we don't tend to do the revenue as often, but usually mid-year we're going to take a good look at all the income, make sure that things are coming in.
Yeah. And if revenues are not coming in as we had budgeted for, then we would make a budget amendment on our revenue.
Yes,
There
sir.
again, keep us in a position where we know where we're at all times.
Yes, sir. And make sure that we've got authority to spend that money as well.
That's right, right. Well, covered a lot of information here. Hope you find it beneficial, and if we've by chance raised questions in your mind or did not touch on something that you'd like to know about, we'd love to hear from you. And this is information that taxpayers need to know, they're entitled to know, and we will make certain that we get the information to you. But hopefully you'll find what we talked about this morning beneficial as you think about the operation of your municipality. Glad to have you with us, and we'll look forward to being with you next week.